The Pool Guy Podcast Show. The Pool Guy Podcast Show. The Pool Guy Podcast Show. Yeah!
Hi, and welcome to the Pool Guy Podcast Show. I recorded a series of podcasts on metal staining and removing metal from your pools with Joe Laurino. He is the CEO and president of Periodic Products, which is the parent company of CuLator. In this first podcast, we go over the causes of metal staining and how using the CuLator products can remove the metal from the pool water. Pool Service Pro, open a Leslie's wholesale account today and receive wholesale pricing on products you use every day. Leslie's Pool Supply offers convenient locations that are open 7 days a week. Another great benefit of opening a Leslie's wholesale account is Leslie's referral program. Get referred to a customer looking for weekly pool service. Also receive priority service, enhanced rebate programs, a discount on your general liability insurance through SPA, a discount on your pool routing software through Skimmer, and an opportunity to co-brand with Leslie's on your social media, website, truck, and more. Save time and money and grow your pool service route and become a Leslie's Pro. So I'm joined today by Joe Laurino. He's the CEO and president of Periodic Products, which is the parent company of CuLator. How you doing today, Joe?
Pretty good. Thank you for having me today.
Yeah, so you want to just give a brief summary of your background in the industry for the listeners?
Sure. I have a degree actually in chemistry, PhD, synthetic organic chemistry. I've done postdocs in biochemistry. Done medical device development, tests for heart attacks. Got involved with the pool industry when I founded this company because I made some interesting compounds and actually patented those compounds. And in 2009, established Periodic Products.
I think it was 2014 or 13 when I discovered your product, your CuLator 4.0. But since then, of course, you have a lot more products in your lineup. Can you go over some of the products in the lineup that CuLator has and touch on the 4.0, which is, I think, one of the industry-leading products for metal remover? And I guess we can talk about what CuLator actually does in the industry as far as what their products do in the pool as far as the metal eliminating process.
Sure. Well, let's start with the 4.0, and that's actually kind of the fundamental product that we have, or the initial product, which is actually the polymer that has some interesting properties in that it binds metals out of water, but it doesn't actually dissolve in the water. So that is our 4.0. We also have the 1.0 product, which is basically if the 1.0 is 1 times the amount of polymer that's in the bag, the 4.0 is 4 times. The other difference is that the 1.0 product goes into the skimmer basket, and the 4.0 is in a plastic holder that goes into the pump basket. Obviously, the 4.0 is a more efficient product because all the water passes through the pump basket, where only a portion of the water passes through the actual skimmer basket or baskets. We then launched products for the spa, similar products that are based on the polymer. We also underwent a kind of a 2-year research project to encapsulate the polymer into filter media. So we then created what are called the fill-fast filter units for source water filtration. And then we created a year ago a startup product that assists with startup of pools, be they plaster surface pools, fiberglass pools, or vinyl liner pools. And then we launched with that a material which is basically called in the industry a sequestering agent for metals. So those are pretty much the major products that we have in the pool industry.
And it's all geared towards metal elimination and stain removal in pools. And when I first tested your product, I contacted my source at Taylor, and then, of course, Bob Lowry, and then, they verified and vouched for the product. And I've seen it with my own eyes. I've seen the CuLator 4.0 bag changing color when it takes the metal ions out of the water. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. It actually takes the ions and binds them to the polymer in exactly the same way that the liquid sequestering agents. They actually bind the metal in the same way. They chelate it, but because the polymer doesn't actually dissolve in the water, it's very easy to accumulate them in the bag and just throw away the bag and with it the metals.
Yeah, and so I guess the common myth or wrong thinking, I guess, in the industry is that you can backwash the metals out in a D filter or sand filter. That's not correct, right? The metal ions don't backwash out.
That is correct. The metal ions are actually dissolved in the water, and even if you were to chelate them, those kind of chelation particles are very small. And these chemicals have been used in, at least the liquid reagents have been used in the water treatment industry for decades. And the only way to get those out is by using ultrafiltration techniques, which are under a micron in size, and you'll never get that with your pool filter, whether it's a DE filter or a cartridge or sand. So those dissolved materials actually pass right through the filter.
And I think that's why the CuLator 4.0 is such a crucial product, because when I first discovered it back then, there was nothing on the market that you can really use to take out the metal, because sequestering agents just suspend them, right? They don't remove them from the water. And the CuLator 4.0 is a revolutionary product that actually takes the metal ions out without having to drain the entire pool.
That is correct, and the material is patented, and actually the metal complexes with the polymer, which we call the, if you will, these kind of composite materials are actually patented also, because they will themselves have very unique properties.
Since we're talking about removing the metals from the pool, I guess one of the biggest questions you're going to get, or we get, is from the customers, is how does the metal get in the water anyway? So if you're a pool pro and you're looking at stains and staining in the pool, and the customer asks you, well, how did the metal get in there? So what are some of the sources of the metal in the pool water to begin with?
Well, when I walk up to a pool, I look for two major sources. One would be metals that are caused by things that are inside the pool, and those that are really outside the pool. So when you talk about inside the pool, you obviously have to talk about the fill water, the source water. You have to talk about the equipment that's there, the chemicals you use, the filter media, the plaster that is used if it is a plaster surface pool, the water features that could be there, whether there's any metal in any of the spillways. And then we look outside the pool. We look for lawn chemicals that may have been put in the pool inadvertently. We look for the deck stone and the other kind of materials that are around the pool, because rainwater is acidic, and depending upon what's around the pool and the runoff characteristics, you can get the metals going into the pool that way. And when we talk about runoff, we look at vegetation around the pool, making sure that any planting beds are lower than the pool deck. And we look for things like copper gutters and metal roofs, and make sure that they're not spilling over into the pool during a rainstorm.
So in other words, there's a lot of different sources for the metal in the pool water.
Yes, a lot.
And then I guess another question would be, there's organic staining when the pool runs out of chlorine. There's also staining just in maybe the plaster that they've actually, the modeling and different aspects of the plaster itself. So identifying the stains, I think, is one of the hardest part, I think, for the pool service pro. When you're out there standing in front of the pool, the sun's hitting it. Is there a best time to look at the pool? And is there a way to kind of know that it's actually a metal stain just by visually looking at the pool?
The best time to look at any staining would be when there's enough light that you can actually see the surfaces. And so you want to not do it when there's any kind of reflective light, because it makes it really difficult to see. In terms of looking at the stain and trying to identify the stain, I think you're asking the right question. I think historically the industry's been focused on, is it a copper stain? Is it an iron stain? And which is a valid question, but I think the first question is it organic or is it metal, which we call inorganic? And I think once you can identify which class of stain it is, then you can utilize the chemistry that's there to actually remove the stain. And it's also important when you're looking at stains to not only look at remediating the surface and getting the stain off the surface, but to identify the source of that stain. Because obviously, if you're going to put a Band-Aid on it, you want to make sure that it heals. You want to make sure that you actually correct the problem that's there causing that metal stain or that inorganic or the organic stain to form. So I think the first thing you do is it organic or is it inorganic? And I think we can use some chemical treatments to do that. So I typically go in with some vitamin C tablets that are basically I go to one of the local drugstores and I get the chewable children's form because it dissolves pretty quickly. But I place it on the stain, typically on the step, and I leave it there for 30 seconds. I lift it up, and if it's taken the stain off, then I know that it's probably 99.99% of the time it's a metal stain. It's inorganic. If it doesn't take it off, if it makes it darker, then I know that it's probably organic.
Got it. And so the organic staining is from no chlorine in the pool and maybe a certain leaf that falls in there, or maybe some other kind of thing like that, right? It's not a metal per se.
Correct. When we talk about organic, we talk about in chemistry we talk about carbon, which is actually it's actually an organic material. So those are things like leaves. It could be oil, suntan lotion. It could be algae. It could be other debris that gets in the pool. It could be tannins in the water. So it could be a bunch of things, but they're all carbon-based organic materials.
And I think a lot of guys like me, I don't know if this is a good practice. We take a 3-inch trichlor tablet and we'll rub it on there just to see if it comes off. Is that something that you think would identify an organic stain over a metal stain?
You could do that. I actually prefer ascorbic acid because again, you're putting a strong oxidizer on the surface, and I like to preserve the surface. I would much rather use a weak agent, which of course ascorbic acid is, vitamin C is, and it dissolves. If it doesn't work, then I know that it's probably organic, and I would shock the pool. I'm kind of from the Greer school of surface chemistry. Do no harm to your surface, and I think a trichlor tablet is pretty aggressive to go after a stain.
Yeah, so I think we'll stop doing that then. We'll just use the vitamin C tablets. It's just one of those things that is old school, I guess. It's been in the industry forever, and the guys always talk about it, and I do it myself, and probably not the best idea, like you said, because it is pretty hard on the surface, chemical wise. And so we've talked about identifying the stains, and let's talk about the colors of the stains real quick before we move on to treating them. And if you're looking at the stains, we mentioned identifying if it's inorganic or organic, and then the colors are kind of important to identify the stain. I know on your website you have a lot of great photos of iron staining, copper staining, and the other stainings. You want to just briefly go over what we're looking for in the different staining colors?
Right, and again, I would caution that while this is a good approximation, metals and chemistry can fool you sometimes, so you want to be careful. If it's a brown stain, we typically would say that's iron, although there are some organics that look brown, some algae and bacteria, so you got to kind of have that in the back of your mind. Green, if the water is green, we typically would look at copper, potentially iron early on. You could have an alkalinity issue. You could have a tannin issue. Brown water could give you some tannin issues also, which are organics. The only one that we pretty much can take to the bank is a purple stain, or the Smurf pool, or the Barney stain, which is that purple cyanuric acid copper complex, because that really doesn't have anything similar to that lives in the organic world. But pretty much we're looking at browns and sometimes blue for copper. If it's a fresh stain, if it's an older stain that's been oxidized, it may turn a little gray on you. So that's why, it's both the age of the stain and the metal that is causing that stain. So we go in and we kind of eliminate some options, but I don't think I would positively ID a metal stain based on its appearance alone. It's really how it behaves chemically.
Yeah, and so the metal testing I think is important too. So if you have a test kit, maybe like the Color Q Pro 9 that does iron and copper, and there's a reading in the water showing that it's in there, then you can pretty much say that there's metal in the water. Is that correct?
That is correct, but again, caution here a little bit too. And I don't want to make this overly complex because I think metal staining removal is very easy to do. But you have to be careful that if all of the metal that was actually dissolved in the water, because that's the first thing that'll happen, is that the metal will actually be dissolved in the water and then it will oxidize with chlorine or with air and actually plate out onto the surface. So if you have staining on your walls and there's nothing left in the water because it's all plated out, you may have no metal in that water, but you have a lot of metal stains in that water. And then, so that's the one thing that I would caution, is that if there's an ongoing problem, then yes, you'll see some metal in the water. But if you have metal staining and it comes off with ascorbic acid, don't be surprised if there's not a lot of metal in that water. The second thing is that testing is really important to know your test and to read the manual, because some tests that test for copper and iron are not total metal tests, but rather measure the free metal, which if you put in a sequestering agent, it's not going to read on the test. So you have to make sure you read the manual and know whether or not your test measures total metal or measures free metal only.
Yeah, that's interesting. I don't think I've heard that talked about much in the industry, and I think that's a good point about testing for metals. I think once you identify that it is a metal staining, and the process for removing it, you mentioned it was easy. You want to go over the CuLator process of removing the metal staining and removing the metal ions from the water.
Right. So as I've already said, that the metal is actually dissolved in the water first, and it exists as an ion, as you mentioned. And what happens is with chlorine or with oxygen, that material oxidizes, becomes a solid, and actually what we call plates out or goes to the surface and actually attaches to the surface of that pool. So to remove the metal stain, you would use a chemical, and we typically use two, ascorbic acid and citric acid. And one's better on copper and one is better on iron. But to make the process simple, instead of figuring out whether it's copper or iron, because sometimes it's both, sometimes you have both in there, you may have a little bit of manganese and you may have a little bit of cobalt, doesn't really matter. So we say put both of them in. So we put in ascorbic acid, we put in a pound of citric acid, and then what that does is that actually takes the stain off the wall. And by doing that, it actually, what we call, reduces it. Just like we oxidize it on the wall, well, we reduce it off the wall. And that dissolves it back into the water. So now the stain is gone, but the metals are in the water. So then you put in a sequestering agent, a liquid sequestering agent, and that then does what I call the kind of the M&M coating of the metal. It actually coats the ion with an organic material that allows the chlorine to sit in the pool, because you want to put chlorine back in that pool. But the chlorine is going to be chewing away at this candy coating, but it gives you time for the CuLator Ultra to actually pluck the metal out of the water. Because remember, unlike doing a one-pass treatment, you actually recirculate the water in a pool. So you take the water, it goes through the Ultra material, removes the metal ions, but you take that clean water and dump it back into the regular pool through the lines, return lines, so you actually slowly decrease the metal concentration in the water. So you need a number of turnovers of that pool to actually get the metal level down. So it's a very, very simple three-step process. You actually reduce the metals stains off the wall, you coat the metals in the water, and then you actually remove the metals from the water with the polymer CuLator 4.0.
So how long does it normally take the CuLator 4.0 to remove the metal ions out of the water?
That depends on how big your pump is and how big your the plumbing is to the pool and how many turnovers you get per day. What we basically, to make this simple, because of the variability out there, in our kit, we actually give you a sequestering agent that's about twice as strong as any other agent out there. What that does is it buys you 30 days. You should be able to maintain your sequestering agent in the pool for 30 days, which gives you about 4 weeks to get that metal out of the water, which is more than enough time for the CuLator to pull the metal off if you run your pool for 6 to 8 hours a day, give you enough turnovers. We've built enough safeguard into our process so that if you don't run your pool 6 or 8 hours a day, it may take you 3 weeks, but everything in there should be able to buy you that month's time.
Yeah, and so the kit, you want to just go over the kit one more time, what it contains, and just the name of the kit for the listeners?
It's actually called the No Drain Metal Stain Eliminator Kit, kind of a long name for something that's real simple. It contains a pound of the ascorbic acid, which is a dry powder. It contains a pound of a second acid, citric acid, and these are all food-based products. And you sprinkle these around the pool, and then you put in the quart of a sequestering agent that we include in the bucket. And again, you just walk around the pool. You basically let the pool run for about an hour, turn it off. The next day, the stain should be removed, and you just check your pH, make sure you're still above 7. Put the 4.0 in the pump basket, return the chlorine level to 1 to 3 ppm chlorine, and you could use that pool. And in the month that will happen between the time you start and the time the CuLator takes all the metal out, you do nothing. It's just the bag will turn blue if it's copper, it'll turn brown if it's iron, and you'll have a pool and the stains won't come back.
And I've used the original kit. I think you had this on the market previously. I think the only change is a stronger sequestering agent. Is that correct?
That is correct. We used the best one out there at the time, and it was good. It was really good. But I told the guys in the lab to make a better one because I wanted to make sure that it would last for 30 days. Given that people tend to put a little bit too much chlorine in the pool, wanted to give us a little extra buffer. So the new one that we've been selling for over a year now has the better sequestering agent in it.
Yeah, so I think to sum it up for someone who's kind of a layman in metal removal, first thing you want to do with the kit, the ascorbic acid and the citric acid will pull the stain off, and then the sequestering agent will suspend the metal ion so that the CuLator 4.0 can pull it out of the pool. Is that a correct kind of summary?
That is a great summary.
Okay, and I think, as far as the kit goes, I used the original one myself. I thought it worked really great. I think it made the pool a little cloudy at the first day, but after that, I cleared it up really quick, and the stain was totally removed from I have a video on my YouTube channel on it. You can see that it was removed from the deep ends, kind of like a step area or a seat area, and then the bottom of the pool took the stain right off too. And then, of course, the bag subsequently turned blue because it was a copper stain in that pool. So definitely the kit is a great way for the pool service pro to start using their, expanding their services in a way to remove those stains and make the customer happy with the stain removal process. And it makes it easy having a kit, I think, instead of kind of getting things and gathering them together. Just buying the kit and having everything in your hands is an easy way to go.
Right, exactly. I would just add that the cloudiness is actually common and actually expected. I kind of mentioned oxidation reduction a little bit here, and what happens is that the chlorine doesn't know what it's actually reacting with. It doesn't have any kind of a knowledge base, right? So it sees the ascorbic and citric acid that's in excess because we obviously give you more than enough because we don't know how much metal you have. So we've overdosed the pool with ascorbic and citric. Well, the first thing the chlorine's going to do is react with the excess ascorbic and citric acid, and that's what causes the cloudy color. As you restore the chlorine back and you hold your chlorine, obviously the pool will turn clearer back again. So it's totally expected. It's because we actually give you more of the materials than you need, just again as a buffer to make sure that you'll have a successful outcome of the kit.
Yeah, I think you explained it well to anyone who's listening, a homeowner, pool pro that wants to treat their metals. And I think the kit is definitely the way to go. And I think I mentioned to you, Joe, that I wanted to record some more podcasts with you this morning, and we could jump into the next subject since that one pretty much introduces everyone to the CuLator products. You want to give them the website real quick so they can go find this kit and also see the other products you have on your site?
Yes, it would be www.CuLator.com.
And for more information, I highly recommend you go to their website. Again, that's CuLator.com, and you can find all of the articles that we talk about and also the photos of different stains on their website. If you're looking for the other podcasts in this series, you go to my website, swimmingpoollearning.com, and on the banner, click on the podcast icon, and then you'll see a drop-down list of the podcasts I recorded, and you can see the other podcasts that I recorded with Joe regarding metal staining in your pool. And definitely listen to the whole series. That way you get a full grasp of metal staining and metal treatment. We cover a different subject in each podcast, so it's definitely worth listening to the whole series of podcasts. And if you're looking to enhance your business, definitely check out my coaching program at poolguidecoaching.com. A lot of great benefits for joining the coaching program. Again, you can learn more about the coaching program at poolguidecoaching.com. Thanks for listening to this podcast. Have a great rest of your week, and God bless. Leslie's Pool Supplies has been do-it-yourselfers and pool trade professionals' trusted partner since 1963, providing quality products and services to make pool care easy and solutions and expertise to do it right.